Hey there, it's Sam. I'm making this quick video. You see, I have the San Francisco Bay behind me. It's pretty nice. I'm making this video because we're having a very important conjunction between Mars and Mercury it's starting February 2nd, and it runs until March 3rd when Mars moves out of Aquarius. So Mercury's going to be in Aquarius until early April, but we're going to have a conjunction between Mars and Mercury, and it'll be in Aquarius, which is a sign that really favors Mercury a little bit more because Mercury is an airy planet and Aquarius is an air sign. This conjunction, it doesn't happen that often that these two planets are in the same sign for so long, join each other. In fact, I haven't researched it, but the reason is because Mercury usually flies through a sign in about 2.5 to 3 weeks, and the fact that it's going to be moving alongside Mars this long is quite significant. Now, the thing is Mars and Mercury have a inimical relationship with each other, and this is something that's unique to Vedic astrology. Actually, usually in Western astrology, these kinds of qualifications or quantifications are not talked about so much, that planets have a relationship with each other. Like, they just kind of have this sort of neutral interaction, at least if I understand it properly. But in Vedic astrology, it's a very important principle, the planetary friendship and enmity. Because what happens is these planets are the living forces within each one of us. And Mars is the force of will to take action. And really the way to look at Mars is this quality of action and what that means. And it might seem like a simple concept, but actually it's really not. It's quite complicated and quite complex. Actions are really an aggregate of our intelligence and our wisdom and our principles and our beliefs. You might not think of it that way. I mean, not all action is that way. Like if you're just going to the bathroom, you're just trying to satisfy an animal desire. But this is the nature of Mars, to operate on that animal level. But more complicated and subtle actions, for instance, when something happens and you're in a situation and you do something about it, that's really the culmination of your intelligence about that thing. And it's really about putting your it's the aggregate result of your principles and how much integrity is between your principles and walking the talk. Because we all have the talk about our principles, but then we also put a certain amount of it into practice. And how much we actually put into practice is the highest nature of Mars. That's how you can really see how much of a person's talk they've actually integrated by what they do. I might say that I'm a, spiritual person, or that I understand this concept or whatever, but what happens when I have to actually do it, put it into practice? That's when you see how much integrity is there. So this is really what Mars comes down to, our personal integrity, our individual integrity. And the quickest way to get an argument from someone is to criticize their actions. Why did you do that? What are you doing? Because our actions are not that simple, are they? When someone criticizes your actions, the first thing you do is defend it. Well, it's because, and then we have some explanation. Because as I said, actions are not that simple. They are simple, and they're also complicated. We're only doing one thing at a time. Right now, I'm only doing this. I have a lot of ideas in my head about it, and there's a whole long history behind why I'm doing this and not something else. But in the moment, there's only one thing to be doing, and that's what Mars is. And if we're going to put our principles into action, it requires a lot of intelligence and wisdom. For instance, Mars is the power of discipline, which is to do the right thing, as I said, rather than just think about it or talk about it. The reason we don't all do what we know is right is because it's harder. It's easier to talk about what's right and then do what's easier, what's more comfortable in the moment, what makes us happier in the moment, which, by the way, is the Venus principle. Mars gives us the strength, the courage, and the power to sacrifice our comfort in the moment to do what's right, to do what we know is right. in accordance with our principles, with our value system. That's what Mars is. That's what our actions are. They're the aggregate result of how much wisdom we have around whatever it is that we're doing. Mercury is the energy that comes after Mars. And the reason we are doing different actions than we did before is because Mercury is the planetary energy that comes after Mars and questions our actions. Of course, it's also other people questioning our actions and making us then question ourselves. Otherwise, we would just keep doing the same actions we've done since the time we were a child, and our value system and our intelligence and our integrity and our teachings and principles would never change. The reason they change is because when we do something, let's say, and we get into conflict over it, or someone, questions why we did that thing, we might argue with them, but then later we think about it. And this is Mercury, thinking about it. Why did I do that? Is this the best thing to do? Was that the right thing to do? And this questioning, this gathering of more information, is what evolves that process of action. Because, like I say, we all come from a history. We come from a family, which, by the way, is related to the moon. Mars comes after the moon in the planetary order. Moon is our patterning and our conditioning, which initially comes from our family, and that's initially what we put into practice, the territory that we defend and the actions we take. Over time, however, that process evolves because we start considering other things. Well, maybe my mother and father didn't know everything. Maybe everything I was taught and all the principles that were drilled into me is not the sum of my possibility. Maybe I can think independently and gather information on my own and use my intelligence and discrimination to find another course of action. This is Mercury. This is why Mercury comes after Mars. Mars is simple actions, black and white, defending territory, acting in accordance with our principles. Mercury comes after Mars to bring variety, intelligence, curiosity, flexibility into the equation. So you're like, great, well, why is that a problem? Well, it's a problem because they're separate processes. The reason they disagree with each other is because when you mix them together, it creates some stress, which means we really are only taking action one thing at a time. When Mercury's there, we're sort of questioning it all the time because that's what Mercury does, right? Can create some frustration. Additionally, when we're trying to figure something out, Mercury's very flexible. He doesn't have a lot of bias, doesn't have strong opinions. He's open. Oh, maybe this, maybe that, I don't know. What do you think? I don't know. What do you think? That's not the nature of Mars. Mars is like fast. I want the answer. I want it to be right, wrong, good, bad, yes, no, not all this. So, for instance, Mercury brings into existence the function of speech, thinking clearly, being flexible, and adapting to what other people say. When you get Mars involved with Mercury, again, we make our mind up too quick. We already have the answer. We already have the opinion because it's based on what I know, what I've done, and there's that heat of Mars that wants to get the answer really quickly. Sometimes this is the problem with Mars and Mercury when they interact. Mercury's not in a hurry to make a decision so we can do something about it. This is what Mars is. Let me just make the decision so I can start doing something, right? That's not the way Mercury is. That's not the part of you that's related to Mercury. Mercury likes to play and likes to enjoy it. Let's just figure it out. I don't have anywhere to go. It's better to wait, figure it out, and in fact, it's even enjoyable to do that rather than take some action that's wrong, that I'm going to regret and do something stupid. This is the nature of Mercury. So again, when these energies interact with each other, they also interrupt each other. So with this Mars-Mercury conjunction in Aquarius, like I said, it's going to favor Mercury more because Mercury is an airy planet and Aquarius is an airy sign. So you might see, even in the world and in your mind and in your life and in your relationships, this kind of individual against the collective sort of nature, as Mars will tend to crusade and battle and fight a little bit against that watering down of our individuality. So you might see a lot of, even in the world, political battles and unrest where the individual is trying to rise up against his personal freedoms being watered down by the collective and things like that. So Mercury, Mars, and Aquarius for the next, waves are getting loud here, huh? Mercury, Mars, and Aquarius for the next, from February 2nd until March 3rd, you might see an escalation of some, international incidents, and, in some of these hot spots in the world, like, Syria and in the Middle East, even like North Korea, or some of these places where there's potential for conflict. You might see some, especially the conflict for individual rights. Because the individual power is Mars, and the collective is related to Aquarius, and also supported by Mercury, who wants to have a dialogue. And it's like the dialogue can get very heated when Mars and Mercury are joined, and actions stop being really as productive as they were maybe before. So there might be a tendency to feel like you're kind of spinning your wheels while you're figuring things out, which is the Mars-Mercury frustration. From the Mars point of view, Mars wants to do something, take action. It's like, don't just sit there and think, do something. This is the Mars sort of, creed. And Mercury is, let's figure things out. Let's just see what, what's the most intelligent thing we can do. So, let me know what you think of this and these principles about the planets and the planetary order. Big, deep concepts. And I have an article at my blog that I posted that has some more in-depth information about this. And I'd like you to, leave a comment. Let me know what you think of this. What experience you have with Mars, Mercury energy, or how your self-willed actions are related to your desire to understand them and to be more intelligent about them, and how those things resonate with you. So I hope you're having a good one, and we'll talk soon. Take a look at the beautiful San Francisco Bay. It's Alcatraz, and the boats, Angel Island, I think that's what that is, the Golden Gate Bridge, and somebody's swimming. It's February 1st and somebody's swimming. In fact, they don't even have on a wetsuit. They're just swimming. I could go swimming right now.